in the mood. I'd better introduce myself first.
Yep.
I'm Phil O'Keefe. I've just taken retirement as Emeritus Professor from the university. I've kind of had 40 years field work, including running some 250 projects through ETC. And I thought we'd ease off by reflecting on the floods in the Philippines, where people are asking for help, where water is everywhere, though I could have been on the quayside at Newcastle last night, or even in North Shields where I was, where the flooding was quite excessive, where in fact people have found how to organize themselves before any external aid usually arrives, and where when aid arrives, it arrives by all kinds of things, but sometimes these things, such as aircraft, are much overhyped, as most aid is found in the communities themselves. And start in with a discussion of disaster. What I want to relate to you is three different tales of really theoretical work that I've done in my life. One is vulnerability, which is associated with disasters, a serious disruption of the function of the community or a society involving widespread human, emphasis there first, human, material, economic or environmental losses and impact, which exceeds the affected community or society to cope using its own resources. I wish to emphasize, however, that its own resources are usually used in the relief phase. It's only in the rehabilitation phase that we see external agencies get in. And if you want to think about it logically, you can probably live 3 days without water or liquid. You can probably live 3 to 4 weeks without food. You can probably not live anywhere in the world, certainly above 3,000 feet, without shelter for more than 56 hours. So getting shelter immediately for themselves is something that's very important. I want to emphasize all of this within the work we did on vulnerability, which is that natural disasters are natural. They only happen to poor people in poor places. There doesn't seem to me to be anything natural about that. Unless you think, like the Mayor of London, that poverty is natural. And none of you do that. Can we go back to that sustainable development? Many years ago, I worked for the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, and I was based in Nairobi. And it was there in 1981 that we considered what became known as the Brundtland Commission, or the World Commission on Environment and Development. A brief history of sustainability is very gendered. It starts, for me, with Carson and the Silent Spring, Rachel Carson, written at Woods Hole in the USA. It then goes to Barbara Ward in the 1971 Stockholm Conference on Environment, where UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, was actually first promoted. It then jumps to 1987 and Brundtland's report on sustainable development. But the reason that the report was commissioned, that is the Brundtland's report, was that UNEP itself was regarded as a failure. And again, conceptually, I'd like you to think of that as being an attempt to change global politics. 1981, the report on UNEP says it has done two useful things: the regional seas programs and the global environmental monitoring systems. That's kind of air pollution control, which is above 10,000 feet all over the world. And it didn't take us long to realize that the one thing that these two programs had in common was there were no people. So we decided that what we had to do was significantly increase politics is usually about capital. That's what we got in yesterday's autumn statement. But it's usually only about capital now and not the future. And politics is rarely about environment. So this is the politics that you know. It doesn't matter which political party you're engaged with, it's about a discussion of money now. The whole idea behind Brundtland was to talk about money for the future and to talk about the environment now and environment for the future, which is why there's a concept of need in there and there's a concept of our children's children. It was a massive expansion of conventional politics, done, I must say, at the height of the Reagan-Thatcher rule. Now, since that point, much work has been done on sustainability in a wide number of disciplines. Everybody is claiming sustainability. But what I want to take you through very quickly is a debate on sustainability, arguing that it really has only three schools of thought, and that these three schools of thought reflect many philosophical and policy differences. I refer to these three schools of thought, and this metaphor will come up again, as the traffic lights. I have the green traffic light, which is the one of ecological sustainability. I have the orange traffic light of sustainable growth, conventional market economics. And I have the red traffic light of sustainable development, which really is a radical policy. And one of the bits I want to take you to immediately is the difference in the basic worldviews. Ecology works with equilibrium models. We're all in balance. Economics works with equilibrium models, conventional economics. It's all balance. A classic joke is about the economist who always says on the one hand and on the other hand, the balanced viewpoint. And you kind of wish that the world had more one-armed economists so they couldn't say that. You know? Whereas the basic worldview of sustainable development is very much open-ended. Right? We are dealing with open systems here. And there are significantly different policy prescriptions. Ecology wants to protect nature. Sustainable growth wants to protect markets as we know them. And sustainable development really wants to empower people. Very different. Now, in this whole discussion of increasing environmental concerns, right, and you move towards equity, even though at the present moment many developed countries are moving the opposite way. If you look to map organizations, you will see that many of them that we have to pay very close attention to, such as the OECD, pay little attention to environment and are really there to maintain the status quo. The ecological modernizers have more environmental concerns and a level of environmental justice. But it's really only the indigenous movements that have a level of equality and increasing environmental concerns, movements that we're increasingly putting down. Now, I went from, if you've ever read Brundtland, the World Commission on Environment Development, you're probably grateful to me, because when I got hold of it with Lloyd Timberlake, it was 3,500 pages long, and we managed to reduce it to 328 pages, I think, in the Oxford version. And if you like, the sustainability debate has almost run its course as a flavor, because the current debate is about something different. But before I move on, let me just say that sitting in the university library are 3 books from many books that I've written, which deal with what happened in Rio when we moved from Brundtland to Rio. The title of it is The Tears of the Crocodile. There's this wonderful expression in English which means that a person doesn't really mean what they're saying. It comes because crocodiles used to be saltwater animals. And when they transferred to land, they had to get the salt out of their eyes. And so they have big fats of duct under the eye. So every time they open their mouth to eat you, it appears that they are crying, because the fat ducts exude water into the eye. So, Tears of the Crocodile is the first one that deals with what happened in Rio, where there was little transformation, but really a restatement of the status quo. We didn't get much further in Johannesburg, and really we got nowhere last year in Rio Plus 20. I didn't even bother to turn up for it, except for putting a statement about disaster risk reduction into the environment program. But the buzzword at the present moment is resilience. And in the library, I would hope by now, there's a copy of the new book on resilience and climate change. Look what's happened to this debate on resilience. It is very, very similar to the one on sustainable development. There are again 3 schools. My green school, my amber school, my red school. My green school looks at the ecosystem. It has an equilibrium worldview. Conventional economics looks at profitability. It has an equilibrium focus. Political economy looks to social justice and has an evolutionary, if not a revolutionary focus. And what we find, if we look at resilience, is particularly in terms of conventional economics, the word resilient to describe any system, be it one of design, be it one of management, be it one of health, be it one of local government, is resilience used really as a verb, not as a noun. Resilience, you conjugate. I am resilient, you are not, and I couldn't care about that. It's a denial of politics in a very clever word, but it's associated with the sustainability debate. And again, if we map the institutions that are meant to be resilient, we find very much the same kind of mapping. OECD, concerned just to hold things as they are. Indigenous movements being the ones where we seem to get most movement towards an evolutionary system. Link back to disasters. It's Christmas time. You've probably been on Northumbria Street. Somebody's shaking a tin, and you think it's the Christmas feeling, Christian Aid, Oxfam contribute. On a global basis, since the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, humanitarian assistance for disasters around the world has gone from $500 million a year to $48 billion a year. By anybody's account, that's virtually a 100-fold increase in public expenditure on disasters. Climate change? Well, maybe. No, because most of the disasters that we are dealing with are what we call complex emergencies or war. $2 provide over 65% of all that money. One is the United States, and the other is the European Union through ECHO. 2 donors provide budget, 48 billion was the 2005 figure. It's a bit less this year. And those two donors presiding over that last increase spent more than 80% of it in Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and Sudan, in 5 wars that we either started or somehow participated in. Largely devoted to Muslim countries. In other words, what we've got is we've got a disaster regime at the present moment which is standing in for good foreign policy, good foreign programming, and good foreign projects. We are not on a sustainable path at all. And we will not avoid that sustainable path by simply mentioning resilience. But there are alternatives. Here's a small-scale study.
You want to quickly talk about project management stuff? Quick.
Yes. We're stuck all of the time in project cycle management, like you are. We spend most of our time actually not now so much in identification, but in evaluation, according to what the OECD DAC criteria. Very important. What is about the worst institution to map for progress? The OECD DAC. So we're going round in circles here. If I move on from that one. We do it all in a log frame because every single public authority now requires log frame analysis for all projects. In theory, what you are having to do is emphasize the stakeholders and beneficiaries and tell us what the outcome is. We do not want to know how good you yourselves are as managers. We want to know what the beneficiaries get and how they get them. And you can go onto any government website of any OECD country. You can go onto the European Commission website. You can go, for example, down to the DFID website or even down to the Newcastle City Council website now, and everything will require that you submit in log frame analysis within a program cycle. And I don't want to go into that in detail, except to say that these boxes relate horizontally and vertically as well as diagonally, and you have to think through the whole process as a requirement before funding is given. Even when we are thinking, and we have a series of projects sitting there, ironically we prepared one 3 weeks ago on the off chance that there'd be flooding in Morpeth, and there wasn't. Right? But the project sits there, and it shall be changed to flooding in Newcastle and North Tyneside by the time the afternoon's out. It fits the logical framework plan. Yeah?
Yeah.
At that point, let's go and look at a smaller scale project and how people go about it.
Okay, my name is Janaka Jaivikram and I'm the program leader of the Masters of Disaster Management and Sustainable Development. Like Phil, I've been working in the field of disasters, conflicts and development, not like Phil, but about 20 years, so half of what Phil has been doing. And basically I want to go through a little case study looking at how communities would look at project management cycle themselves. Because what we learned, what Phil showed you earlier, is very much a top-down approach. It's very much that project manager decides. But what I want to give you is a story of how a community actually developed a project. This is from Sri Lanka. As you would know, Sri Lanka just got out from a bloody 30-year-old conflict, and still there are a lot of issues, human rights issues, violations, abuse, discrimination, plus development. So it's very much still a disaster and a developing country. So that's how we would look at it. And if you like to look into what's going on in Sri Lanka, you could Google it and you'd have enough information. The story I'm talking about goes to 1992, where McMaster's University in Canada came down to a city called Batticaloa in eastern Sri Lanka to conduct a research project to look at how children react mentally, or how the children's mental health during a conflict. So they spent 2 years in the community, got to know people, worked with people, conducted their participatory information, questionnaires, all of that. And by end of 93, they said, okay, we got what we want, we are leaving. The community got quite angry because you collected all our information. What are you going to give us? Was the big question. What are you going to do? What's the impact of this research on us as a community? Was the big question. So based on that, in 1994, 4-5 period, we established a program called the Butterfly Peace Garden in Sri Lanka, in Batticaloa in Sri Lanka. It's established officially in 1996. It's a community collaboration. It's very much a child-oriented program. As one of the children who came into the garden said, it's a sanctuary for wounded fairies to get healed. However, it had many issues, many problems, many challenges, because we were sitting in the middle of the war zone where the government forces and the LTT were fighting. We tried to save children not to join the war. So we had 12,000 children graduated since 96 up to now from the program at the Butterfly Garden. So it's a very successful program, however, owned by the community. The strength of the program came from these 6 things. The relevance. It was very relevant to people. So we gathered the community, listened to them, what they wanted to. So it's very much led by the community. Storytelling, artwork, theater, dancing, music, all of that were part of that process. The impact, the biggest impact is that we managed to get 12,000 children out from the war, not to join the conflict. Effectiveness, it was very effective because both the government forces and the LTT respected the space that was treated as a sanctuary. Efficiency, it was very efficient because it needed little money. However, towards the end of the conflict, in 2009 when officially everything ended, it became the fact all the donors pulled out from Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is not an emergency anymore. We have Syria, we have Iraq, we have Afghanistan, now we got Philippines. So all the donors would run away. Became a problem of sustainability. However, the challenge is the small budget. The whole project needs only £6,000 a year. The donors were reluctant. How can you have that much of high impact with this much of little money? Was the big question. How can you explain that? Keeping the space free from others. We are big donors coming and taking over everything from the community. Is a big challenge. And transforming the expertise from the conflict focus to the post-war development focus. How we are going to transform the organization. Because we are not in a conflict anymore. We are looking at post-war development. Child sexual abuse, alcoholism, violence against women are rising within a post-conflict situation. What should we do? Is the question. So, in that light, we looked at the project management cycle from a very, very different angle. Everything starts from a dream. I'm sure in your project management, scientific approaches, we don't look at dreams, isn't it? However, at community level, it's a dream. How we are looking at the impossible to make the possible real is the question. If you are sitting in the middle of a war zone, if you are sitting in the middle of a disaster, it's always a dream. Then we have to decode, figure out what are the inner and outer issues. Because communities are always complicated. The caste, class, economic issues, differences, different religions, all of that. And we have to define what are our goals, what are our objectives, and then to discuss. When we do develop community type strategies, it's very much a dialogue or a discussion. We can't just decide by ourselves. And decide the action, what do we want to do? And then deliver programs and finance. And then we have to always evaluate within the community, what are we doing? Not necessarily an outside evaluator comes to evaluate, but very much the evaluator within the community. And then you actually move away from the usual project management cycle to respond to that evaluation, where community take the ownership in action. So that becomes a different project management cycle from the general project management cycle you know. That's the story of this different approach. And that's where we are now. That's basically it. So these are some of the references, and most of these books are in the library if you want to learn what we discuss more. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. We do have time for 10 minutes quick questions, if you have any. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. How far is the scientific evidence that the human produce or helps for disasters? I will repeat the question. Sorry.
Explain a little bit further.
Yeah. Sometimes we see that disasters on TV, and we kind of receive a blame. You are using too much carbon. You are doing that. How there is evidence? Is there evidence that human development, human activity can produce disasters, or is increasing disasters?
Before Phil gives the answer, I can tell you a proverb from Africa, Western Africa, which says, God make drought, man make famine. So there is that link traditionally understood. Do you want to continue, Phil?
Yeah. I think the evidence is fairly logically there. Because any definition of disaster has to include human beings, why I say logically, and because we've had an increase of human population to about 8 billion, you would obviously expect the number of disasters to rise. But I think we're also altering the environment, and that was not much doubt. But we're not quite winning the media war with what we're saying as scientists about climate change. What we're really saying is not that the world's getting warmer, that's it. It is, but that's not the big message. What we're saying is things are getting more extreme. So that the management of everything now has to come in with a consciousness towards what is going to be the extreme. But systems are not equal across the world. Developed countries are much more robust, given their capital resources and human capital resources, than developing countries are. And you can't simply transfer projects that work in developed countries to developing countries. I know I've tried frequently and failed miserably. I'll give you two brief examples that might seem to be far away from disasters, but are acutely part of it. Always remembering that our reference point for most change in disaster management was post-Rwanda, when we sat around and watched, I don't know, 500,000 or 1.1, 1.5 million people macheted to death in 4 weeks, and we did nothing. So there was a big shake-up of the system post-Rwanda. And so there are scientific standards about what it's supposed to be. But take a simple example, a refugee camp in Tanzania. No sooner have you got the camp going, and there's more than 250,000 people in it, you need energy. Energy is wood fuel. Wood is all around you. They cut it all down. The Tanzanians claim it deforestation. We start wood projects. But we started by trying to get wood to grow fuel with. But what they were cutting down was rubbish that got in the way of agricultural production. And what they were cutting down was probably 100 different types of trees, all with multiple end users. Whereas our fuelwood tree only had one end use and only one species. We did the same thing when we addressed the issue of energy efficiency with stoves. Clearly, improve the efficiency of the stove and we save the wood. It's a different way of tackling that problem. So you go back to your elementary science of physics, anti-heat transfer, radiation, conduction, convection. And what's the first thing every expert tells you to do? Enclose the combustion space. The question we really should have asked was, when do women cook? And they cook at night time, between dusk and the dark. What's the first thing that happens when you enclose the combustion space? There is no light, because the fire was its own light. What's the most expensive energy form to buy? You got it, electricity, or batteries. So the very stove design that we were doing was not one that was attractive because of the multiple simultaneous use. One of the things that distinguishes Western design, Western project management, from what happens in the real world, including in the developed world and families, is that we pay no attention to the multiple simultaneous use of things. We presume there is only one scientific end use that has to be designed into a project or into a management system. Wrong. That's not science. Science is to go out there and deal with the multi-dimensionality of evolutionary change, not try and assume an equilibrium with one answer. That applies to disasters, development, and all everyday life.
Thank you.
My question is about this resilience framework.
Slightly louder for me,
I'm
because I'm
sorry.
partly deaf.
My question is about the resilience framework. And I just started reading, well, for a while, and it seemed kind of political to me. I mean, because resilience framework is kind of promoting change through adaptation, a gradual adaptation, and sustainability seems like a very drastic change, I mean, for the culture of now. So resilience is kind of proposing that the system continues to function while it changes. So, but because you said that there is a setback and that you don't agree with resilience, I just wonder why.
First of all, because you're talking adaptation, it generally means you're talking about how livelihoods are constructed.
Yeah.
And there's no single way in this world that livelihoods are constructed in a simple manner. Let me try and give you an example from the development world, because it's one of my favorites. When Margaret Thatcher was first Prime Minister, the first privatisation that was attempted was the cleaning of hospitals. Now, I don't want to get into an argument about whether the private sector cleans better than the public sector. Let's assume there is. But one of the things that happened is that cleaners ceased to exist on wards. Because the private sector comes in and cleans the ward and then takes the cleaners out, goes and cleans another ward. That's the way it works. Nobody took into account the fact that the cleaners provided the essential convalescent service. Come on, Mrs. Smith, you have to eat your lunch. Mr. Roberts, get back into bed. They ran the wards. Nurses and doctors have never done it. It was always the cleaners. Cut the story to 2013, and we now still have private cleaners on the wards, with a quite significant increase, I believe, in disease load. But more importantly, we have 88,000 nursing auxiliaries. So for saving, I don't know, the
salaries of 5,000 cleaners across the country. We're now employing 88,000 people more because nobody tried to look at the adaptation from the way the service was provided. And central to that, central to the experience of being a patient, was who provides the convalescence, which has huge levels of economic benefits, throughput of patients. You take that and you transform it into developing countries, and it becomes even more difficult. What am I supposed to do? For instance, in Darfur, 2005, as the famine raged, as the war increased, where in the refugee camps, I was receiving increasing numbers of reports about women being raped. I have no defense whatsoever. But I have a problem, which is that the women are ostracized by their own families, even though the rape is frequently in the family, if they allow legal proceedings to go ahead, even traditional legal proceedings.
In the Sharia.
So I'm stuck trying to manage these camps with these accusations of rape, and I have the UN Women's Group, on the other hand, saying I'm breaking with human rights. Can we have a universal right across all cultures, when in fact the women would be ostracized and would probably eventually die of famine because she would be pushed right out from the camps, access to food, access to shelter, which I said to you is more important. I don't know. What I do know is I made an honest decision and tried to follow what the women wanted, which was not to have somebody breathing gender roles down. Some things are not clear-cut as they teach them in university. I mean, I can go on and on and on. We've just finished a major program around the world for the Netherlands government, 10 million program, in 14 developing countries looking at climate change adaptation. One of the case studies is on Kilimanjaro. You get this stuff in the libraries where you do. Kilimanjaro is one of the most complicated agroforestry systems in the world. In other words, the crops are the tree crops. So you have large-scale wood, and then you have bananas, and you have coffee. But the diet has changed from being a plantain, banana-based diet to maize and beans like the rest of East Africa. And the population has increased. Now, at the top of Kilimanjaro, of course, is the very famous glacier, and everybody goes trek. You never climb Kilimanjaro, you trek. It takes 5 days minimum, or far slightly take about 7 days. But for every day you're on the mountain, the Tanzanian government charges a tourism tax of $50. So before you started, there's a $350 cost to trek Kilimanjaro, which I have to tell you, $350 is greater than the annual per capita income in Tanzania. So nobody wants to take away that level. So the people, population expanding, can't move up the mountain. They can't move down the mountain into the plains anymore, because there are a whole series of multinational companies who've grown up because Kilimanjaro airports expanded to bring in the number of tourists, who do vegetable exports to Marks and Spencer's. They particularly do roses for Valentine's Day, you know, February the 14th, flown out. 1 day's production a year? No? And because of that, the people can't move down the mountain either, because these are large monocultural farms. What to do? Well, the obvious thing to do in their adaptation is logical, is to cut down the trees. Because the price smuggled over the border to Kenya is very, very good indeed. Now, you've probably seen Al Gore's film on climate climate change, where we uses Kilimanjaro as the image of the impact of climate change, because the glacier has decreased enormously. But could it be decreasing? Because when the trees are cut down at that altitude, cloud formation is affected. Without the clouds, we don't get the snowfall or rainfall. Without the rainfall, we don't get the ice compaction. Who knows? But we do know the glacier is increasing. But we do know that the people can't go anywhere except, and this is the story of the world, except 500 miles away to the capital city, Dar es Salaam, in the hope of getting a job. We have a candidate doing a PhD from the United Arab Emirates, from a police background. He started off basically asking about the risk of earthquake, flood, storm surge. We said to him, how many, or what percentage of the UAE population are migrants? And he said, oh, 65%. So we said to him, how many languages do they speak? He said, I don't know. I'll come back and tell you. And I think the answer is 120, isn't it? 121. How are you going to put out a risk warning when 65% of your population speak a language other than Arabic? We have another student doing a PhD on carbon here in Newcastle with poor communities, carbon reduction, and it's linked to climate change. She's just come back from doing questionnaires. When she's been given the questionnaires to women for whom childcare is their main occupation, mothers, when she asks them to keep a diary of the day, she gets all these diaries back which say, did nothing, did nothing, did nothing. Got the children up, fed them, clothed them, took them to school, went shopping for lunch, went back to school to help with the school dinner, went back and cleaned the house, went and fetched them in the afternoon, brought them home, did nothing. How do you get to a situation like that, right? Where people themselves deny the fact that they work? The biggest failure of all development projects is to assume that somebody else is doing nothing with their time. And the biggest failure of all disaster intervention is to assume that you have victims.
Okay, brilliant. We bring this question phase to an end for now, to hear our next speaker, and then afterwards have a little bit of discussion. Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
But
Thank you very much.
While you're setting up, the last thing we want to let you know is life is not necessarily scientific. Life is not necessarily logical. Those are the two things you need to think about when you do project management, even in a business model. Yeah.
And if we have to explore a little bit on that in the discussion afterwards as well. I think this is a good point. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, can we now have a...
life isn't logical. I'm going for a cigarette. I know how to
Okay, can we now welcome our next speaker, Chen Chao Hong? Yeah? Great, thank you. Is it working?
Good afternoon. Oh, yes, it works. Okay, I'm Xiaohong Chen. I'm a candidate, PhD candidate in Northumbria University. I also work as a sustainability consultant for the past 7 years. And today I would like to share some of my experience in this field in the construction field. So first, I will spend a very short time to explain the concept of sustainability. And then I will use 2 case studies to explain how this principle works in a real project. So globally, we are consuming resources and polluting the planet at a speed 50% faster than the Earth can renew it and absorb them. So that means the Earth will take 1.5 years to regenerate the resources we use in a year. So this will cause some problems, such as climate change and flooding and declining fisheries and other environmental problems.
Do you want to touch one more time the micro? I think then it's on again. Yeah, that should be it.
Sorry, let's go too far.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the population...
Oh, it's not
doesn't
on
work.
it.
Okay, I just try to speak loud.
Yeah, if that is okay, yeah.
Yeah, if the population consumption trend continues, so we will head to that direction. So by 2050, we will need 3 planets to support us. But of course, we only have 1. So we have a biggest challenge now. So how we are going to meet our need without destroy the planet? So now we're talking about sustainability everywhere. So the principles of sustainability is to look at these 3 pillars as a whole, and any of them cannot be ignored. So whenever you're doing any business and individuals' activities, just stick in these 3 parts in mind and balance them. So they are the people, profit, and planet. So let's look at the city we are living now. So this is the conventional city, and most people in the world are living now. So what kind of model it is? So this city needs input from the input of the fossil energy for the electricity and power and fuel and heat, and need the natural material for our product, and need fresh water for drinking, irrigation, and food for eating. And what we produce on the other side is the polluted air and water, and carbon dioxide, such as any other greenhouse gases, and waste food and waste materials. So this is not the model we're going to be, because that's going to lead to that 3-planet lifestyle. And we need a sustainable city. And what sustainable city will it look like? So we will use as less as natural resources to support material and energy to our city, and try to use renewables whereas possible, and to recycle and reuse the waste as resources for our other use. So in this city, also need to provide employment and more business to the people living in the city, and also it will be a place for people to enjoy their life, have a happy and healthy life. So how we are going to do it in practice? I'm going to use this case study to explain how all these sustainability principles in the construction project. So BEZED, the full name is Beddington Zero Energy Development. It's the UK first sustainable community, and also claimed as the largest sustainable community in the UK. It's located in South London. It's built in a brownfield in 2002, and consists of 100 homes and about 2,000 square meters workspace. And this, the the residential homes, about 50% for private and 25% is for key worker housing, and another 25% is for social housing. So that's quite mixed. It's not like very usual for the normal development. And the aim of this project is trying to establish a financial and technology viability for low-cost, zero-carbon emission development, urban development. So to achieve this goal, so this project is designed for zero-carbon energy. And how this achieved to this goal, there's only need 2 steps. One is to reduce the energy demand for the building need. And the second is to supply the remaining demand by renewables. And to reduce the demand, so first of all, we use the passive design to design the building. So what is the passive design? The passive design is the building designed carefully and trying to use the natural sun heat and the wind and air to power the building without any electricity. So that's the passive design. So this unit is oriented south and north-south direction. So on the south side, there's a living unit, have a sun space in front. So the sun space can get as much as a solar gain to heat the house. So winter, in this part, you don't need central heating. On the north face, this is a workspace. So it's shaded by the front building, and in summer, you don't need it without too much heat for the room. So there's no need for air conditioner in the summer. So this can reduce the energy need for running the building. And also this building is using wind towers. It's very colorful. So this is the zero energy ventilation systems. So without any electricity power, so this can take out the air from the building and put fresh air inside the building. And this is 100% powered by natural wind. And also the building envelope is a super insulated, and the wall is thicker than average. So there's an insulation in between the blocks. So it's very, very thick wall. So keep the energy keep inside the hole. And because the house is such designed very, very well, so it only need a tiny energy for the heating, electricity, and so this demand will be provided by on-site renewable energy plant, which is a biomass CHP, and the solar power on the roof. So the CHP is the combined heat and power plant. And so this electricity plant not only provide the electricity for the entire community to use, also provide heat, water, and hot water for the homes to use. And plus, it treated 1,000 tons of tree waste every year from the local. So look at the water. So how this community save the water? First of all, they recycle all the harvest all the rain water from roof and the garden, and also they recycled the wastewater from the homes, and using a living machine to treat the wastewater. And after the water is treated, will be used for toilet flush and garden irrigation. So you see the wastewater before it treated is that color. It comes from homes, like shower and kitchen, and then after treated, it becomes very clean. So through this sustainable water strategies, the people live in this community use only half, say 50% of the water than average UK citizen. So another strategy used in this community is to use the green transport plan. The transport producer has about one third of the carbon for our carbon footprint. So first of all, the community is planned to a car-free home zone street. So that in the middle of the community, there's no driveway. So the driveway is around the community. So the car only can park outside the community. So this provides very safe place for people to cycle and walk, play inside the community. And also the community invented the first city car club there. So it's kind of a car sharing scheme. So so you don't need to own your own private car, but if you really need a car, then you can just go to get this car very convenient. So this car club can reduce the private car owner rate by like about 65%. So also this very close to the public link, like the bus and other transportations. So in the community, all the material, building material, and is locally sourced, and also is a sustainable material. So all of this frame, the steel framework is reclaimed material, and also about the other building material is sourced within 50 kilometers radiator. Another thing is the food. So how to encourage the resident to use local food and have a healthy and organic food. So that's the food box scheme invented in this community. So it's linked with the local organic food, and also there's a allotment on site, so people can grow their own food on site. So to recycle the waste is very difficult for everyone. So we're trying to so many ways how to make sure people can recycle right. So this in the kitchen, you can see this recycled bin just under the sink. So it's very easy, very convenient for you to separate different things, and they're using different colors to remind you which is for white waste, which is for organic waste and paper and cans. And also there's an on-site collection point, so it's easy to bring to the central point. So the recycled rate is much higher than average UK resident, about double rate, 60% recycled rate in this community. And also there's a composting facility in the allotment. So when you recycle organic waste, and you can compost them, get fertilized for your food. So in this community, and people without changing your lifestyle, and you can save the heat energy by 80% and electric by nearly 50% and water 50%, and also the use less card. But the quality of life is compared neighborhood is much higher, and the people knowing their neighbors by names, about 20 neighbors, but in average in the UK probably people know your neighbors by names about 3 also. So people like this, even this design very high density, but there's provided a lot of sun spaces and quality private garden, so people having a better sense of the community here, and there's a community bar and space for people to share. So this page, it shows what's the benefit they can get. So that shows that is possible to build a zero carbon community with a low cost, and also developer and occupants and planet all get benefit from this kind of development. So the developer spend more, about 30% more cost in front, but they also get the revenue back after through increasing the density and reduce the car parking space. And occupant will save their bills by like 3,800 per year. So that's a huge amount for people, low-income people. And also the planet got benefit will reduce the carbon, save the carbon more than 100 tons per year. So that's the UK lessons we learned, and how this BEZ model will apply for in other countries, in developing countries such as China. So that's one of the sustainable community in China, in South China, Guangzhou, and it's called the Hills. So a developer is a China Merchant Development, and it consists of 8,000 homes, and also the same size of the business park and other commercial entertainment and shops and schools. And so this is about 100 times larger than BEZ. So remember I said BEZ is the largest sustainable community in the UK, but this community is the very medium size in China, and just for the single developer, development. I'm not going to go through all the innovation technologies used in this project because it takes too much. Even just one building, they use more than 60 technologies. I'm only choose 3.3 non-technical innovations to introduce how they change the way they used to do before. So the first one is to use a new model of mixed-use development. So in this area, it is a suburb area. Normally people, the developer buy a land, they build houses and sell it. People live there and they work in the town center. They have to drive there or maybe take public transport. So for the surrounding areas, all living area, there's no workplace. Some corner shop maybe, but people have to rely on cars to get out of these communities. And the concept is to have a complete mixed use development, is to bring work into the community, not just the homes and shops. And so that's about half size of the site is the office place. So if you look at it, this is the south side, and that's the residential area. On the north side is the innovative business car park. So that's all the offices. And in the middle, this is the living center. You have shops and banks and post offices. And also there's a lot of kindergartens, schools, from primary school to the middle school up to the colleges. There's an art school inside as well. And so there's more and more facilities in these communities, bring a full life of the lifestyle, so you can stay here without going outside of the community. So this distribution, the plan of all these facilities will split all over the community, and everyone you stay in every part of this community. You can go to some basic facilities by 5 minutes walking, and go to the main center by 10 minutes walk. So that's very convenient. So they call it the 4 Ws, 4 walks. So walk to work, walk to school, walk to shop, and walk to leisure. So another new way for the development procedure is the integration of sustainability. So that's the hardest part, because most time we design it very sustainable master plan, but when it's built, it's changed everything. Eventually, it's just get the result completely different. So from the beginning of this project, the developer integrated bring the sustainability integrator into the project team, so they become part of team. So from design, implement, and management and operation of the community, they will stay there, whether the integrators is outside consultant or the internal dedicated staff, but you have to be a person to watch out. They have to comply with the sustainable action plan. And yeah, so this is all the workshops. Yes. Last slide. So the last innovative way to use in this community is I call it a zero carbon, zero cost. So most time that we want to build a zero carbon building normally is high cost. So the developer, private developer, not willing to do it because they are not benefit from the zero carbon. And how you can encourage the private commercial developer to build, invest on zero carbon technology. So I bring the third party into the project, become a partnership with the property developer. And the third party, whether it's the utility company or the product producers or maybe a new company, they invest, install, and run it. So they will get revenue from selling energy or fresh water or maybe manage the waste and from the occupier. So that's the kind of a concept of this new investment and management model for low carbon building. So this model still in ongoing. So actually, this also involved with my research as well. And okay, I'll only introduce these three innovations because I think at the time really ran out of time. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Can we maybe have two quick questions? Did you have any quick questions, clarifications, or curiosities? Yeah.
Yeah. I just wondered, because Beth said, I see it as a successful project, but I haven't heard of any other examples where they've modelled that again. Is there a reason why it hasn't happened if it was successful?
BEZ is built 10 years ago, so it's very advanced model. At that time was it's very state of art the way. And BEZ is using the holistic strategy, trying to use everything, look at every aspect of development and to reduce their impact to the environment. But this model, because I use this model, apply to other development I involved, and I found out it's not a fully worked for maybe in a different country, especially in China. It doesn't work in China, but the concept work in China. Because we are different priorities in different kind background of the culture and the economy, and all people think about different way. The fact that there's some kind of lessons we learned. Not everything worked. So I show this is a principle. So that's the framework. But there's a lot of things that doesn't work in BEZ. For example, the CHP power plant now is switched off. At that time, it's the first community scale CHP in the world because they want to have something on site, trying to make it completely zero carbon in this community without any electricity come from grid. And this power plant is designed for automatic running, but the problem is it doesn't work. They need people to manage it. So that's the risk they didn't thought about. They have to switch off, and also other technology. And also the water treatment plant also switch off today because the running cost is too fast, too low. But the technology is being used in other places very successful. Not in BEZ, but in other places they're being used.
Yeah.
You said that the cost, but how much do you have to pay in front? About
it all depends. It's very if in the BEZ it's about 30% higher than average, but they reduce the land price because that's the brownfield. It's like industry land. It's a waste land, so they get a very cheap price for the land, and also.
So how long does it take to get the revenue back?
That's very difficult to say. Depends which technology you're talking about. Because if you put the PV on the top of the roof, on that time, you probably will never get it back in the whole life, the life cycle of the PV, because that time is very high. But right now, there's incentives from government. So government gave you a tariff, 15 tariff, and also other kind of incentives. In China, you can get about 5 years. So if you put a PV panel for the electricity, about 5 years, you can get investment back. If you get the solar thermal for hot water, probably less than 2 years.
Okay, shall we leave that for later discussion and revisit it? Because we have now another innovative, this announcement just came to me yesterday. So we have as well the hosting of a new video, yeah? But first of all, thank you very much again, yeah?
I hope all of this intervention, we will think differently about project management. Now we are going to present to you an indicative movie about history of project management by ET Production, our classmate.
Ever since ancient times, great achievements have been realised through projects. The Great Wall of China is still today one of the greatest projects ever managed. Today's project management has become a discipline in its own right, with sophisticated tools and methods being developed to assist the delivery. In 1914, the construction of the Panama Canal was finally completed. The canal had been initiated several decades earlier, and the construction had been shadowed by disasters. Today, the canal is an invaluable transit channel for shipping around the world. Currently, a huge project is being undertaken to widen and improve the canal because of its great utility. During the 1910s, the Gantt chart was also born, a tool that is still used today and appreciated by project managers around the world. The scheduling tool that breaks the work down to smaller tasks has been named after its founder, Henry Gantt. The silhouette of La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona has become representative for not only Barcelona but all of Spain. Even though the cathedral still was not finished, the works came to a halt in 1926 when the main architect Gaudi died. The estimated completion is now within the next 20 years. It may not be evident looking at the La Sagrada Familia, but the technology advancements made in the first half of the 20th century helped decrease the amount of time needed to complete the projects considerably. The Manhattan Project was a large government-sponsored R&D project that invented the atomic bomb. It involved around 125,000 workers and cost $2 billion to deliver. A month after the project was completed in 1945, the first atomic bomb was dropped over Hiroshima. In the 50s, the Polaris project developed submarine missiles carrying atomic bombs. It was during the execution of the Polaris project that the modern project management was born, with the refinements of the discipline and the use of PERT. The 50s always gave us the critical path method. Or perhaps most importantly, this is when the term project management was coined by a US Air Force general. In the 60s, the world breakdown structure was developed. It is a tool that allows you to break down the projects into small components and is frequently still used today. One of the most revolutionary projects, not only for the discipline of project management, but for the whole world, is possibly ARPANET, which formed the foundation of what we know today as the Internet. In the 80s is a decade where the Russian space station Mir was launched. Additionally, in the 80s, the Iron Triangle found its way into project management. It measures the project's performance according to 3 variables: time, cost, and quality. In the first decade of the 21st century, Palm Jumeirah was constructed in Dubai. With a size of almost 6 square kilometres, it is the world's largest man-made island. It was also the decade where such tools such as Agile was introduced to manage large IT projects. Project management was also named one of the 5 top skills in demand on the US job market. A recent major project performed was the London Olympics in 2012. Over 10,000 athletes participated in the Games, a sustainable mega project delivered by a workforce of around 200,000 people. Before completion, the initial budget was increased by almost 400%. The project had high sustainable goals, such as different kinds of renewable energies were planned as part of the strategy. such as turbines, hydroelectric generators in the River Thames, or solar panels in some of the buildings. Unfortunately, most of those proposals were not finally executed due to safety reasons. However, 70% of the waste was reused, recycled, or composted. In different ways, project management has consistently over centuries delivered life-changing products and processes. The change will undoubtedly continue and has never moved fast as it is moving now. The next change is in your hands. Are you up for the challenge?
We invite you to complete the questionnaire in your booklet. And if you have some questions, you have a coffee talk. Thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, shall I bring it big quickly? Because I think first of all, I want to thank the team that actually organized this conference. A brilliant idea as a project for delivery. And I did like that we jumped actually from one side to the other in a way where we had some very sustainable views coming really from the ecologic drive by the economic to the political agreement as a society to arrive as well what sustainability means to us. And then as well scientific frameworks that can actually guide project managers in being more conscious of what sustainability actually means to the people, to the community. Yeah, and there was a strong interlink actually between that. But then to the end as well, the aspirations to understand where our tools are coming from. Yeah? The history that took us through at a very imaginative presentation, yeah, where a lot of our tools are coming from. And that we have to keep maybe that search as well for bringing those elements all together. Yeah? So being as well perceptible to the pull mechanism, but as well allowing communities to push new methods of and criteria of measurement, what success actually means for us as a project manager. Is the coffee actually there? Can I just check that?
Yeah.
So, okay, so then I suppose we will create that a little bit more informal. If you have questions, just approach the speakers, and I'm pretty sure that they will be happy to explore their insights and understanding of the world with you, and do so over coffee and take it as an informal discussion. Yeah? Okay, superb. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the team for organizing this. Brilliant. Okay, so where is the coffee?
Yeah. Just
And the cookies as
keep
well.
walking left and you will see it. I'm right there. So
Okay. Follow Shao. All right. Okay. Okay. Should I switch it off?